And I'm here now joined by Vertigo Games, a business development head who is one of the driving forces behind this, John Coleman. Thanks for joining us. First, tell me about this setup and what virtual reality, the tools that are needed for this.
Sure. So one of the things we've tried to do with this is make free roam, where you walk around instead of using trackpad locomotion or a joystick to move, really approachable for commercial locations, is to be off-the-shelf perspective of gear like the HTC Vive. We're using HP backpacks, Omen backpacks. And really to play this, all you really need to do is look at the headset, controllers, and the backpack itself. However, to really make this a premium experience, you can have haptic vests. So if a zombie hits you, you feel that. Foot tracking, so you can see exactly where you're moving with your feet. Gun peripherals, as you can see, we're using here.
Now, this can really get your heart rate up, but you have another interesting concept. It's called the Corsair's Curse, and that is an escape room. I've not heard of virtual reality escape room before. Tell me about the idea behind this.
Yeah, so we were working with our partner Interspace VR, who created this escape room, and the great thing about this is it's really something you can only do in VR. The teams that go through this puzzle, one is extremely small and the other is extremely large. You just can't recreate that in a non-VR escape room, and it gives you something that's truly illustrated the power of what virtual reality can do.
And it's only in a few places right now, right? I mean,
Correct.
Escape room VR.
Yeah, so Corsair's Curse is available in Paris right now. We'll be bringing it to a lot of other locations soon.
VR spaces like this, I've been seeing them popping up at shopping malls. Do they have the potential to save shopping malls, which have been dying, around the world?
Yeah, I think the way to think about them is an attraction, a driver of foot traffic, similar to how a cinema would draw people in and then have a shopping experience after that particular form of entertainment.
So it could bring in more foot traffic to buy things? Okay.
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of VR arcades that are more smaller room scale VR, but we think this type of VR, where it's free roam and you're walking around and you have this spectacle aspect, really is something that would draw people to a mall or that type of large commercial environment.
And now you're responsible for about 20% of the content played in U.S. or Western VR spaces, right?
In Western markets, the games that we represent are about 20% of the minutes played in arcades.
Okay. Now, what about home VR? How's that catching on right now? Is there more growth in the bigger spaces or just in your home?
We're seeing growth in both markets. There's a lot of discussion about, has VR lived up to expectations? And one of the things that gets lost in that is the install base is continuing to see a solid growth track. We have a game that's over 2 years old, and we're seeing higher sales in the second year than we saw in the launch year, which is, really unheard of from a game. But I think it's a function of the fact that as people are buying headsets, they're looking for what the top experiences are. And we see a lot of that lift in sales growth really being driven by the install base growing.
So a lot of those games that didn't sell in the beginning, there's still hope for them because people simply just didn't get connected that quickly, right?
Yeah, there's a significant audience that's buying headsets that have never tried the title that was released in 2016. We certainly see an app store effect. If you're high in the charts, it's sort of the number one place people go to engage with. I want to try what's hot, what's the best title out.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, my cameraman, I want to see, you can see them in the space here. I don't know if you want to take a look again over here, but what's interesting about this game is playing with somebody else. I haven't played VR with somebody else, and we had to communicate. Now, there's an awful lot of potential for them to run into each other and bump into each other. How do you prevent that?
Well, from a technology perspective, the headset tracking actually keeps the relative position so that if what I see in the game is actually where you are. So if I reach out and touch you, it actually matches up with what I'm seeing in the game. So in real life, I'm standing here looking at you. I'm not going to try to run into you. I would try to avoid you. And so that's part of it. The other aspect is using game design. So how do you move players through the space? Obviously, we've got a 6x6 meter space here, which is not huge if you're going to create the sense of like grand vistas and walking through a large area. That becomes a function of how do you turn people around and properly use the space where there's that sense of motion and travel without actually leaving this small area.
You're going up and down elevators, you're jumping over spaces and heights. People talked a lot about VR making people sick. Do you have to take into that account, or has technology gotten better where people are not going to be getting sick anymore?
The great thing about free roam is it eliminates really all of those issues, because the number one thing that would cause people to feel sick is movement, where you're seeing movement in a headset and not moving physically. Here, all the movement is driven by your own feet, so it feels as comfortable as normally walking. And so it becomes a very approachable form of VR for someone who hasn't tried it before, or who has some concern, how am I going to feel with this? You'll feel very, very comfortable.
Okay. Virtual reality spreading for everybody in escape rooms, and also doing a better job of not making people sick these days. So,
Absolutely.
John Coleman, thank you for joining us. I'll have more game development conference coverage throughout the week. Back to you in the studio.